Amara was raised by her poor widowed mother in a small struggling neighborhood in Lagos after losing her father at a very young age. Her mother sold akara and pap every morning under the hot sun just to feed them and keep Amara in school. Despite their suffering, Amara was brilliant, respectful, and determined to succeed in life. She became one of the best students in her university, admired for her intelligence and humility. That was where she met Bayo Adebayo, the only son of one of the richest families in Lagos. Bayo was handsome, arrogant, and born into wealth. He drove expensive cars on campus, wore designer clothes, and every girl wanted his attention. But unlike the others, Amara never chased him or cared about his money. Her simplicity attracted him deeply, and against his mother's wishes, he pursued her until she agreed to date him. Their relationship shocked everyone because they came from completely different worlds. Bayo's mother, Chief Mrs. Adebayo, hated the relationship immediately. She believed poor girls only married rich men to escape poverty. She constantly insulted Amara and warned Bayo that marrying her would bring shame to their family name. But Bayo was stubborn and deeply in love. After graduation, he proposed to Amara publicly, and despite his mother's anger, they had a grand wedding attended by politicians, celebrities, and wealthy businessmen. Amara's poor mother cried tears of joy because she believed her daughter's suffering had finally ended. After the wedding, Amara moved into the massive Adebayo mansion. Everything looked like paradise at first. Servants attended to her, she wore expensive clothes, and Bayo showered her with gifts. But hidden beneath the luxury was pressure. Chief Mrs. Adebayo constantly reminded Amara that her duty was to produce a male heir because Bayo was the only son in the family. She would often say, "This family needs a boy to continue the lineage. Without a son, a woman has failed." Amara tried to ignore the comments, but the pressure slowly began to torment her. 1 year after marriage, Amara became pregnant, and the entire mansion erupted in celebration. Bayo was overjoyed and immediately started planning for his future son. His mother bought blue baby clothes, expensive toys, and decorated a royal nursery for the expected boy. They constantly spoke about the unborn child inheriting the family properties and carrying the Adebayo name into the future. Nobody asked Amara how she felt or cared about her health, they only cared about the child being male. As the pregnancy progressed, the pressure became worse. Chief Mrs. Adebayo even invited herbalists and spiritualists to pray for a boy. One elderly herbalist touched Amara's stomach and confidently declared that she was carrying a son. The entire family celebrated wildly while Amara forced herself to smile despite the fear growing inside her. The day of delivery finally arrived during a heavy stormy night. Thunder roared across the sky as Amara screamed in labor inside the hospital. Hours later, the cry of a newborn baby filled the room. The nurse smiled happily and announced, "Congratulations, it's a beautiful baby girl." Immediately the atmosphere changed. Bayo's smile vanished completely. His mother's face hardened with anger and disappointment. Silence filled the hospital room. Bayo stared at the baby for a few seconds, then angrily walked out without saying a word. Amara thought he would return after coming down, but he never came back. Hours passed. No calls. No food. No payments for the hospital bills. Nurses began insulting Amara because the bills remained unpaid. She cried helplessly while carrying her newborn daughter, feeling abandoned and humiliated. That same night, a wealthy banker named Evelyn Cole entered the hospital. Evelyn was elegant, powerful, and respected across Lagos, but despite all her riches, she had one pain that haunted her for years: she could not conceive a child. She overheard the nurses mocking Amara for giving birth to a girl and being abandoned by her husband. Shocked and heartbroken, Evelyn approached Amara and asked what happened. When she heard the full story, tears filled her eyes. Without hesitation, Evelyn paid all the hospital bills, bought baby clothes, food, and medication, and comforted Amara like a mother. Amora broke down crying because a complete stranger showed her more kindness than her own husband. The next morning, Amora carried her newborn baby and returned to the Adebayo mansion hoping Bayo would forgive her. Rain poured heavily as she stood outside the giant gates holding her child tightly. But the gateman blocked her path and nervously explained that he had been instructed not to let her in. Amora begged desperately while the baby cried loudly in the rain. Suddenly Bayo appeared on the balcony upstairs and coldly shouted, "You and that girl will never enter this house again." His mother stood behind him proudly. Amora screamed and cried, reminding him she was his wife and the baby was his blood, but they showed no mercy. She sat on the wet ground outside the mansion shivering with her child while neighbors watched in shock. At that moment, Evelyn's car passed by and she recognized Amora immediately. Horrified at the sight before her, Evelyn rushed out into the rain, carried the crying baby into her arms, and shouted angrily at Bayo. "Any man who rejects his own child because she is female does not deserve to be called a father." She took Amora and the baby away to her luxurious mansion. From that day forward, Evelyn treated Amora and the baby as family. She named the child Zora and loved her deeply. For the first time since her marriage, Amora experienced genuine peace. Evelyn hired teachers, nurses, and caretakers to support them. Zora grew into a brilliant, confident, and exceptionally intelligent young girl. Evelyn became emotionally attached to Zora because she felt the emptiness in her heart. Amora also resumed her education and eventually started helping Evelyn manage charity projects. Meanwhile, the Adebayo family slowly began falling apart. Bayo's father died suddenly, business deals failed, and several family properties were seized because of debt. The wealth they once bragged about began disappearing. Bayo entered one failed business after another while his mother became bitter and constantly blamed spiritual attacks for their downfall. Despite everything, Bayo's pride prevented him from apologizing to Amora. Years passed, and Zora grew into a beautiful and intelligent young woman. She excelled in school and earned scholarships because of her brilliance. Evelyn proudly sponsored her education and eventually sent her to America to study technology and business. At the airport, Amora cried emotional tears remembering the day she held that same child helplessly in the rain outside the mansion gates. Evelyn reassured her that great destinies often come from painful beginnings. In America, Zora worked tirelessly and became highly successful. She launched a technology company that expanded internationally and made her one of the youngest black female entrepreneurs in the industry. Her success brought global recognition, magazine covers, and interviews. She became wealthy, elegant, and powerful beyond anything Bayo could have imagined. 25 years after rejecting his daughter, Lagos buzzed with excitement over the arrival of a famous billionaire entrepreneur returning from America to launch a charity foundation for widows and poor girls. The special guest was Zora Ko. Luxury cars lined the airport while journalists and politicians gathered to welcome her. Zora stepped down from her private jet wearing an elegant pink designer outfit, surrounded by cameras and security. People admired her beauty, confidence, and grace. Among the crowd stood an older, broken-looking Bayo. His once luxurious life had collapsed completely. The moment he saw Zora's face, his heart nearly stopped because she looked exactly like Amora. When he finally discovered she was the baby girl he rejected years ago, he broke down emotionally in public. Tears streamed down his face as he remembered abandoning her in the rain. Bayo desperately begged Amora and Zora for forgiveness. He knelt before them crying bitterly, confessing his regrets. But Zora calmly looked at him and said, "The daughter you rejected became the blessing God used to change lives." Her words pierced his heart deeply. Though Amora forgave him for her own peace, the years of pain could never truly be erased. Instead of seeking revenge, Zora used her wealth to build schools for poor girls across Nigeria, created shelters for widows, and established foundations supporting abandoned women and children. She honored her grandmother's sacrifices and Evelyn's kindness by helping thousands of struggling families. Everywhere she went, people celebrated her story as proof that no child is worthless and that greatness can rise from rejection. And in the quiet moments of his lonely old age, Bill lived with the painful realization that the child he once threw away became greater than everything he ever prayed for. The end.